We're here to talk about the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act, a bill that my colleagues Tim Waltz and Tammy Duckworth and I are filing, hopefully to get ahead of an epidemic that exists out today, certainly one within the Department of Veterans Affairs. We just finished about a 4-hour hearing where we talked about mental health access and even what happens once somebody gets access into the VA and whether or not they are in fact being able to do their job in a way that we would all expect them to do. But I think access is critical. Accountability is just as critical, because too often we hear where individuals don't do the right thing. We have seen problems with access numbers, and those numbers have in fact been fudged, and in some cases, in my opinion, criminally changed, and nobody has been held accountable for that. It's important to know that, in the past few years, that the VA's staff and budget has increased some 40% over the last 7 years, but unfortunately suicides are happening at a frightening pace. 22 veterans a day is not acceptable by anybody's imagination. This isn't going to change as long as VA continues to stick to its business as usual tactics. They continue to defend the system. The system has to change, and if they won't change it, Congress will change it for them. I want to introduce my colleague, Tim Waltz, who's a great supporter of veterans, a good member of the Veterans Affairs Committee, and more importantly, he's a good friend.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, thank you all for being here, and thanks to Chairman Jeff Miller, a true champion of our veterans and someone who is in the right place at the right time to bring change. In a minute, of course, you'll hear from my colleague Tammy Duckworth, who needs no introduction. I'm proud to stand here with IAVA, the VFW, and Susan and Richard, who you're going to hear from, who epitomize that American spirit, the most unimaginable tragedy of losing a son. But instead of turning inward, they've taken their courage and their dignity and they've turned outward, and they've made the commitment that this will never happen to another set of parents, and that this nation's commitment to getting it right is unwavering. And so, as we've witnessed, and Chairman Miller so clearly pointed out, the shortcomings of the VA, the frustrations we have, the absolutely unacceptable situation we've seen at Phoenix and others, has given rise amongst the folks here that we will get to the bottom of it. There will be accountability, but most importantly, how are we going to move forward to make sure that the care is delivered the way it should be? And so I proudly stand here today as Chairman Miller, as Tammy Duckworth, myself, and then of course the people who wrote this bill and who brought the emphasis, the folks standing with us, and Susan and Richard, the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act. And it better be exactly that. It better be suicide prevention. It better not be just passing a bill. It better not be standing there when a bill is dropped. It better be what the results are, because I can tell you one thing, there's nothing that unifies the American public like the care for our warriors, and they will and should not accept anything less. So I think the opportunity now to start moving in the direction of how do we fix it, how do we make it better, and how do we ensure that this never happens again starts here today. So I want to thank everyone who's here, and at this time, I'm around here I always say you hear a lot about duty, honor, country, and then you simply have people whose lives exemplify that. Tammy Duckworth, my colleague.
Well, it's a real pleasure to be here today, joining with Chairman Miller, someone who has worked so hard for veterans, and of course with my colleague Congressman Waltz, the only Sergeant Major in the United States Congress right now, and it's good to have the backbone of the military with us every single day. I also want to thank Clay Hunt, for whom this bill is named. He helped so many vets during his life, and even in his death, he is an inspiration to all of us now. As a nation, we have a commitment to keep with our veterans, to make sure that they receive the care that they need, and that means reducing barriers to care however we can. With an average of 22 veterans committing suicide a day, we are failing them. We don't even have statistics for how many military families are attempting suicide. That is yet a whole nother issue. This legislation in particular will provide accountability for VA and DoD's mental health care and suicide prevention programs. It will help make sure that we are doing all that we can for those who are returning home from war. And will also provide awareness for veteran suicide and provide loans for those seeking careers in mental health in VA to help complete their education. I've seen how difficult it can be for veterans to combat post-traumatic stress, and we need to do everything within our power to fight for the veterans, just like they fought for us. Our veterans did not wait to respond when we called and asked them to serve. They should not have to wait when it is us who should be serving them. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Paul Rykoff. I'm an Iraq vet and the founder and CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans America. I want to thank, first of all our friends in the press for being here. You continue to keep a focus on our issues, and we know it's hot here today, but it's cooler than it is in Afghanistan and Iraq right now. And I think we should always keep that in perspective. I also want to thank Chairman Miller for his tremendous leadership, Congressman Walz and Representative Duckworth. You have been steady, consistent leaders for all of us. And together, this is a bipartisan front. This is something you don't see in Washington very often. Both parties getting together and putting principle ahead of politics. And that's what today is all about. And that's why our members have come from across America. Veterans who've felt this personally. Over half of our members know someone close to them who's died by suicide. This is personal for us. Our friends are dying. They're dying right now. And America has to act. Our veterans have called out for help. We've had hearings, we've had debate, we've had media hits. Now it's time for action. That's what today is all about. And especially after the VA scandal. We've heard a lot of rhetoric in this town. It's time for action. We also call on the American people. Stand with us today and call all your representatives. Tell them to get behind the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act. It's something you can do right now. And send a message to Congress that they need to get this done before their summer vacation, before elections, before anything else. This is most important. It's literally a matter of life and death. We also want to send a message to the President. We need your help. This is not just about Congress. IAVA has suggested an executive order for the President. There's action he can take immediately to support our veterans. And we need that right now. It's my honor to introduce Clay's parents. But before I do, I just want to share what our members said to us. We ask our members every year, what is most important to you? They said suicide. Again and again, when I travel the country, our members tell us suicide is most important. A few months ago, many of you here in March, when we presented the Senate version of the SAV Act with Senator Walsh, it was a very important moment. But it took too long to get here. Now we've got to take the next step. And our members came from across the country to send a message, just like Clay did himself a few years ago. He was a member of Storm the Hill. He walked the halls of Congress. He fought for his fellow veterans. And today we're carrying on that fight in his name. We also want to thank our friends from TAPS, from Team Rubicon, from the VFW, from all the mental health community that are standing together. This is a united front. And we are standing behind, most of all, the families. Our families that have lost their sons, their daughters, their brothers and sisters, their fathers and mothers. They are why we are here today. We're here to say no more people should die. It's a very simple message. And we're honored to stand with American heroes, true American heroes, who testified for almost 3 hours today. I met with Susan and Richard on the anniversary of Clay's death in Houston. And I asked Susan if she wanted to be a part of this fight. She said, I'm done grieving. I'm ready to get to work. And she has been working tirelessly ever since. And she's going to deliver this message to all the American people. And we hope you listen. Don't just turn the channel. Take action and stand behind us. And it's my tremendous honor to introduce to you Clay's mom and stepdad, Richard and Susan Selke.
Hello, thank you all for being here. My name is Susan Selke, and I'm accompanied here by my husband, Richard, and IAVA members from across the country. I'm here today as the mother of Clay Hunt, a Marine Corps combat veteran who died by suicide in March 2011 at the age of 28. Clay returned home from Afghanistan in October of 2008 and and was then honorably discharged from the Marine Corps in April of 2009. He earned numerous awards during his service in the Marine Corps, including the Purple Heart for the injuries he sustained in Iraq. Clay exclusively used the VA for his medical care after separating from the Marine Corps. For years, he received care at the VA in Los Angeles, a short time in Grand Junction, Colorado, and then Houston, Texas. He constantly voiced concerns about the care he was receiving, both in terms of the challenges he faced when scheduling appointments, as well as the treatment he received for his PTS, which consisted primarily of medications. He received counseling only as far as brief discussions regarding whether the medication he was prescribed was working or not. If it was not, he would be given a new medication. Clay used to say, "I'm a guinea pig for these drugs. They put me on one thing, I'll have side effects, and then they put me on something else." With his initial visit at the Houston VA in early January of 2011, it wasn't until March 15th that Clay was finally able to see a psychiatrist. But after that appointment, Clay called me on his way home, and he said, "Mom, I can't go back there. The VA is way too stressful and not a place I can go. I'll have to find a vet center or something." Clay was consistently open about having PTS and survivor's guilt, and he tried to help others coping with similar issues. He worked hard to move forward, and he found healing after helping other people, including participating in humanitarian work in Haiti and Chile after the devastating earthquakes. Just 2 weeks after his appointment with the psychiatrist at the Houston VA Medical Center, Clay took his life. Clay's story details the urgency needed in addressing this issue. Despite his proactive and open approach to seeking care to address his injuries, the VA system did not adequately address his needs. That is why Congress must pass the SAV Act. That is why the President must act to help combat suicide. If there is one thing that can get done in Washington, it should be this. Not one veteran should have to go through what Clay went through with the VA after returning home from war. Not one more parent should have to testify before a congressional committee to compel the VA to fulfill its responsibilities to those who served and sacrificed. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Morosky. I'm from the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I'd like to thank the parents of Clay Hunt for those words and the testimony that they gave today. On behalf of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, I'd like to thank Chairman Miller, along with Representative Walls and Duckworth, for introducing the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention for American Veterans Act. Suicide in the veterans community is a widely known crisis that weighs heavily on this nation, and especially those of us who have served in uniform. The sponsors of this bill have chosen to meet the challenge of facing this complex problem. We appreciate that they gave the VFW the opportunity to help shape vital legislation. This bill includes suggestions that the VFW brought to Congress from those on the ground, the military community, mental health care providers, family caregivers, and the veterans who face the effects of PTSD every day. I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight some of the bill's most important provisions. First, it would change the way unfavorable discharges are reviewed by the Department of Defense in cases where service members were likely suffering from undiagnosed mental health wounds. All too often, unfavorable discharges act as a barrier to VA mental health care for many veterans who need it most, setting them up for tragic outcomes. Second, this bill would establish a VA community outreach program focused on successful active duty to veteran transition through peer support. Every community in America wants to help and welcome home returning veterans. But all too often, veterans with mental health wounds feel isolated and don't know where to go to find those resources. They suffer in silence, and as a result, their problems only get worse. Peer support's a proven model of success within VA facilities, and using peer support specialists out in the community to help connect their fellow veterans with the services they need is the next step. Third, the bill requires VA and the National Guard Bureau to enter into strategic partnerships that ensure Guardsmen do not fall between the cracks as they transition from active duty, and that the National Guard hires enough mental health care professionals to meet the growing demand for care. Once again, I'd like to thank the chairman and the other sponsors for introducing this important legislation and for their continued effort to fight for those who serve this nation. And at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to the chairman. Thank you.
We would be glad to answer any questions that you may have, and of course, Clay's family is here as well to answer questions. Sir.
Chairman Miller, Paul Cortez from CNN. As as we heard Mr. Hunt from others say, the VA is already trying to do a certain amount of mental health support. What does this bill do to compel the VA to do a better job at it? I heard some of the mechanisms the VA reps, but overall, in a nutshell, what's it going to fix?
Well, the most important part that I can see is accountability within the department, something that's been sorely lacking for a long time. People are not held accountable for the things that they do, things that may in fact harm or cause harm to a veteran. Of course, you've heard about the outreach methods that have been talked about in this particular piece of legislation. I think that that is critical. And then something that I've heard time and time again, and that is those types of discharges other than honorable that have in fact caused veterans to lose benefits, medical care that they may be supposed to be receiving down the line. Much of that could be mental health as well, because they may be suffering from undiagnosed post-traumatic stress. And the other thing, and I think one of the things that's most important at this point, is the sheer fact that we have focused such a light on the VA right now and their incapability of providing the health care in a timely fashion. I've asked my staff to get me the hearings for the last 3 years where VA has in fact told us that they have been handling mental health care cases in a timely fashion, and we in fact know that that is not true, because I want to be able to provide not only the acting secretary that information, but the new incoming secretary once he in fact is confirmed.
Hi, yes, Christina Wong from The Hill. What is the likelihood that this bill will get passed before the August recess, and what needs to be done in order for that to happen?
I tell you, one of the first things that needs to be done, CBO needs to score it. We have filed the bill without a score, which we would rather have a score as far as the cost of the bill. But again, it's important to get the policy right. The cost will come later. We are dealing with other issues in regards to a conference committee. But I think that this is something that members in the House especially should want to focus on and be able to pass out of our body. It's the Senate that we obviously have no control over, but Chairman Sanders is well aware of the importance of this legislation as well. So again, we will work in a bicameral, bipartisan way to get this bill passed, as we have many other veterans bills, particularly here in the House.
Chairman Miller, you mentioned the conference committee. Where do we stand on the overall veterans bill? It's been a month since it was passed by the House and the Senate.
We wait on an adjusted score from the CBO. As you know, they were extremely high numbers. Most people on both committees do not believe that they're accurate numbers. We think that sometime within the next maybe 24 to 48 hours we will get something from CBO. And at that point, it will behoove us to set a path to be able to get the conference committee report done and to both houses before the August recess, because it is important that we send a strong, clear message to the VA that America is watching and expects better. Ma'am.
I want to follow up on the CBO score. Is that something that would be released in the conference committee, or is that something that would be released in public?
Oh, I suspect you'll hear about it just as soon as it's released. To be very honest with you, I don't hold out a whole lot of hope that the score will be much lower than it was before. But I don't believe any of us thinks that it's going to cost $40 billion a year to do what we are trying to do in this very critical piece of legislation.
And then the second question I have is, why wasn't the suicide prevention included in at least the House bill and the Senate bill, so that it could already be in?
That's a good idea. And access is the most important thing that we are trying to fix. And access has been a problem, but it's way beyond access as far as mental health. Trying to get VA to go outside of its normal course of activities to allow veterans to get some of the non-traditional types of care that works. VA likes to find ways to plug people in to things that VA likes, and that may not necessarily be what works best for the veteran. And we've got to become more veteran-centric. Not only here on Capitol Hill, but certainly at the Department of Veterans Affairs. They are there to serve the veterans, not the reverse. All right, everybody, thank you. We've got to vote. We've got to go inside. All right.